What is coyote capitalism?
Well, you know what a coyote is. Coyote is a slang term for a human smuggler, someone whose job it is to get people across a border. And they don't really care about why people are moving across a border. They don't care what happens to them afterwards. They don't care about the consequences as long as they get paid. So I'm using coyote capitalism to refer to really sort of a global system. I don't mean that in a conspiratorial way, but when you look at policies of governments and companies, what pushes and pulls migrants, and then you have people in the middle, either legal recruiters or coyotes, human smugglers. It all kind of works together. People not really concerned about the consequences of migration, but enabling people, encouraging them, either pushing them out or pulling them in. And then, as I say, in the middle you got the coyotes or the recruiters who get paid to bring people across borders.
You mentioned that government policy sometimes encourages this coyote capitalism, but in this country it seems as though we're always working to keep immigrants out, at this point at least, in the immigration debate. What do governments do, especially ours, to encourage coyote capitalism, and what have they done in the past?
Well, we've recruited people in the past. I mean, the country was based on immigrant labor. We like to think of in this romantic notion about people coming over because of religious freedom or all the rest. People came either, slaves obviously is one example of the huge migrant labor workforce, but indentured servants and workers who came here because it was a job opportunity. Building the United States from the beginning was an economic prospect. One of the articles in the Declaration of Independence was asking the king to allow settlers to be able to go beyond the boundaries of the colonies because they wanted economic development. Since then, we've put in a series of programs that actually, whether it's the Bracero program in the 40s or 50s, various other programs that have worked to bring people into our country. Really, what we've got at the border are two conflicting signs, particularly when times are good: no trespassing and help wanted. So, and we depend on migrant labor. 12% of the workers in this country are migrants. They do, and traditionally, not just in this country but around the globe, they do the so-called 3D jobs: dirty, degrading, dangerous jobs. And again, as I said before, when we don't want them, we ask them to leave or forcibly deport them. In the sending countries, many countries encourage their workers to leave. It's expected. I was in the Philippines, and there it's part of the culture. They grow people for export deliberately, just as other countries might grow crops. You're expected to go abroad, work, send money home. The negative impacts on migrants are something that we often don't think about as a developed country. We talk about the use of resources in our own countries and education, social services, etc. But we really don't think about the consequences to the migrants themselves. I remember interviewing a guy in Monterrey in Mexico who was sitting in a bus station ready to be shipped across the border to work as a legal temporary worker in an onion field. And big, strapping Mexican guy, the epitome of machismo. And I talked to him about coming over, and he'd been coming over every year for about 8 years. And I said, well, that must be kind of hard for you and your family. And to my surprise, and I shouldn't have been shocked, the guy just started crying. And we don't think about what it means when people are separated from their families.
Is there an ideal way to manage the immigration of people, and to what extent do you think governments and companies around the world have to work together to accomplish that?
Well, I think that's the only thing that has to happen. I mean, we have to get beyond seeing migration as purely a domestic issue. By its very nature, since borders are involved, we need to work cooperatively, one government with another, to do something about the conditions that encourage people to move. And if we're looking at policy, that's the direction I think we need to be moving in, rather than putting up higher and higher walls, whether that be Fortress Europe or across the US-Mexican border. Janet Napolitano, who is now the Secretary of Homeland Security, when she was governor of Arizona, a border state, said, and I think very wisely, show me a 50-foot wall and I'll show you a 51-foot ladder. As long as people make the calculation that the reward is like to be greater than the risk, they're going to make that journey.